have a little deal if you go through there. You gotta bring it.
We're going to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and it's 6:30. And if you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Would you bow your heads, please, for word of prayer? Lord, thank you for the privilege of allowing us all to gather here today as free people. Please support all of our administrators, our teachers, our parents, and our students as they process through the end of the year. Help us as board members to use our wisdom and our knowledge to make good decisions for the students in the district and the community. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John.
And now Cheyenne will read our mission.
Mission of GISD. The mission of Gatesville ISD, a portal to limitless possibilities, is to empower our students to be life-ready, knowledge seekers, and problem solvers by instilling leadership, innovation, integrity, critical thinking, and service through challenging and engaging learning experiences facilitated by passionate teachers and supported by caring parents and community members.
Thank you. And our first topic tonight is the Student Spotlight. Coach Cooper.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Where's your shorts? I've never seen you without shorts on.
Well, a few pairs of long pants. I am the Student Spotlight tonight. My name is Kyle Cooper. I'm the Athletic Director here at GISD. And it's a great honor today to be here to present the Texas High School Coaches Association Academic All-State Award. So these are given through all of the sports based just on really 3 criteria, only given to seniors, so I guess 4 criteria. But then it's based on their GPA, class rank, and their SAT, ACT scores. So kids are awarded a certain number of points based on those categories, and then they're ranked at either elite, first team, second team, or honorable mention, academic all-state. And so each of these young people have received or are going to receive certificates through their athletic banquets. But tonight we have an opportunity to present them also with a cord that will go around their neck at graduation. So seniors, all right, y'all are the brightest of the bright. Please see that this gets around your neck. Okay? A couple of days away. I know some of y'all are checked out on us a little bit. Very proud of these kids. We got great kids here in Gatesville, Texas, and it's a great honor to get a chance to give out these awards. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ask that y'all come up and get your cord, and then we'll just line up across here as best we can. All right, we'll go ahead and face the parents. You guys, they're the ones that want to see you. We'll see you on the way up. We are in alpha order. Okay, so we're coming in alpha order right here. So, any questions about Academic All-State? No? All right, let's get started.
It's a pretty big deal.
It is. It is. It's a great honor. So, first up, Bo Allen. Bo received football, honorable mention. All right. Next up, Kennedy Berry. Softball, and she was received elite team, so that's great. That's a great honor, the highest they can get. Sarah Brock for track, second team. Some of these guys I know won't be here tonight. Various ones had work, and even one still competing in athletics today. So, Sage Carson, volleyball and track, honorable mention. Jesse Dunbar, volleyball, first team. Some of these guys are also our managers and trainers. They're all, any kid that's involved in the program is eligible for this award, and Jesse was a manager for that team and a shooter, so watch out. Like this. Next up, Sydney Farrell, volleyball, manager for boys basketball. She was honorable mention. Jim Hitchcock, football, honorable mention, boys powerlifting, second team. Dylan Johnson, boys basketball, elite team. Vance Jones, boys basketball, honorable mention.
Coach, before you get too far,
Yes, sir.
you missed, was it Ashton Gribble? You skipped that one.
Ashton was not on this sheet. All right,
Number 7?
Okay. Yeah, it goes straight to Jim Hitchcock. I don't know how we made that mistake.
Oh,
so.
okay, well, it's on here.
All right, Ashton Gribble. She was also boys basketball manager. All right, next up, TJ LeBlanc, boys basketball, second team. Tyler Lewis, football, boys basketball, and track, honorable mention. Braden Lunsman is football, honorable mention. He is not here because he is competing in the state golf tournament, which our boys are sitting second after today. So that's one day and one day left tomorrow. So Braden Lunsman for football and most likely golf eventually. So Macy Matthews, volleyball, honorable mention, softball, second team. Jonathan McCullough, boys powerlifting, first team. Zach Mueller, football, boys basketball, and baseball, elite. Joseph Nolte, boys soccer, honorable mention. Amelia Paniagua, football, honorable mention. Amelia is not the starting linebacker. She is a filmer. Great job. We couldn't do it without our filmers and trainers. So, next up, Preston Preciado, football, second team. Hunter Schiff, football, second team. Daisy Seagraves, volleyball and girls soccer, second team. Jeffrey Shunkwater, football, second team. Caitlin Smith, volleyball, honorable mention. Kyle Stiffelmeyer, football, honorable mention. Wyatt Tackett, football, first team. Track, second team. Kiana Taft, cross country, second team. Seth Trotter, football and boys basketball, first team. And finally, Savannah Webb, girls soccer, second team. All right, let's bunch all in here, guys, real quick. Bunch in. Let's get one good picture. Bunch in here. Bunch in. Come on. Get some in front, some in back. All right. Hey, while they're organizing, one more person that I would be remiss if I did not mention is the greatest athletic secretary in the state, Velvet James. And so she's not here tonight, but she does a ton to help our coaches get these organized. This was actually her idea with the cords. So give her a round of applause if you would.
Y'all all smile, act like you like each other.
Don't move yet, guys. Hey, it's been a great bunch of seniors. I appreciate you guys and your efforts in our program over the past 6 years. And you're going to be missed not only for what you did on the field, court, diamond, track, wherever you might have applied your athletic trades, but also what you've done in the classroom and as leaders for our school and for our community. So one last time, thank you all very much for what you've done. Let's give a round of applause. Board members, Dr. Pollard, any questions for these guys?
I'm proud of our student athletes. You know, some of our best athletes are also our best students. You know, sometimes that's a misconception that all the athletes struggle academically, and that's not true. they're oftentimes very good students. So we're proud of you guys. You guys are going to do great things. We appreciate you.
And we'll see you Friday night in all your glory. We'll shake your hands then.
All right. It's that quarter graduation, guys. Thanks, guys. Y'all do not have to stick around.
My grandma's shower is like really high pressure. And like
Vance's mom said one more picture outside, okay? One more picture.
It's really.
I was ready.
Doing all right? I'm good. Good to see you.
Good, good. Good to see you. Yes, sir. Not addressed on the NCAA.
Yeah. We need to clear the room for the fire marshal got called. Now for the next group. Yeah.
Oh, I've been watching you do your thing.
Next group. Next group.
Okay. We will have Ms. Venable come up, please, with a student spotlight. Ms. Venable.
All right, well, I'm really excited tonight to honor one of our junior high students for her accomplishments. We have a 7th grade student. Rachel, you want to come on up? This is Rachel Holden, and our art teacher, Mrs. Hayes, has really been pushing our students and encouraging them. Over here, stand here. They want to see you. Encouraging her students to enter these contests and really really kind of just step outside the box and do different things. And so she entered a contest from the Texas Rural Education Association. It was a poster contest that they put out. And her poster, which is this right here, and Rachel, you want to hold that? She won 2nd place out of 250 entries, I believe. And so this is Mr. Tarleton from the Texas Rural Education Association, who has come tonight to present her with an award from them, and I think a little bit of money too, Rachel. So, but we wanted to honor her for the student spotlight as well. So we'll have a certificate for you, but Mr. Tarleton really has the really fancy, nice award for you. So I'm going to let him speak now.
Thank you for letting me be here. I'm Bill Tarleton with TREA. Our organization represents 400 school districts, including Gatesville ISD. We always have offered scholarships, but that's to seniors. And so 3 years ago, we started an art contest, and we have 3 divisions: elementary, middle school, and high school. And we did have almost 250 entries in all of the 3 categories. We just present a winner and a runner-up for each of the 3 categories. So 6 winners out of 250 and 141 in Rachel's category. Hers was the biggest category. So a very high honor to be runner-up in that. And so Rachel, it is my pleasure and honor to present you a certificate.
Thank you.
You're going to need more hands.
A plaque. Something for you.
You want to hold that for her?
You grab your.
Because I'm pretty sure she's going to want to grab this. Check for $350.
Wow. You want to go around and kind of show them your poster as to for what you did to win your prize and this awesome money?
Bill, thank you for coming.
Yes, we appreciate
Absolutely,
you.
my pleasure.
Do we have
Rachel was very gracious. She said she was going to split the money with me. She said, no.
She's looking at you and
Well, Rachel, we have a certificate
Yes,
for
we
you
have
as
one for
well,
you
and our
too.
board wants to come around and get a picture with you. So we'll hold this kind of up here with you. Bill, go
Here,
ahead and get in that
let's-
picture too.
I'm gonna hold on with it. How do I do this?
We'll sneak you in.
I did too.
Oh, I thought you have to squeeze in.
I'll stand still.
Very
have to go stool or stand up.
Marianne, right here.
No, I'm
You
good.
want to get on the inside?
You don't get up here.
I'll stick the mug up here. Okay, hold.
Hold.
Hold that pose. My grandson would say cheese.
Good.
Congratulations, ma'am.
You do a great job.
Very
Oh,
good
very
job.
nice. Yeah.
Okay, here's all your loot. So unless you want me to hold your check for you, I can certainly do that.
Everybody wants to help with the check.
I know. It's very important. We don't want to lose it. Congratulations. Hey, I'm gonna let you hold all this awesome stuff. We're so proud of her. She did such a great
We
job.
have a big week too, 'cause we get to miss the last day of school and go.
I know, A&M, I know. It's exciting too. Congratulations.
Charles.
Mr. Charleston, thank you again for doing that.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Ms. Bone, we're going to another student spotlight.
No, I kill him.
Let's go over here.
All of you see this gorgeous girl? Well, tonight it is my honor to spotlight Katie Northern, who is a remarkable young lady. We thank you for this opportunity because it was unanimous who our student spotlight would be. She is about to finish on Friday afternoon. She will finish her second grade year at Gatesville Elementary School, but she started the year on homebound because she was receiving chemo and radiation treatments. Her doctor told us that she would not be able to attend school all year long. Well, guess who showed up in January? She amazed her doctors, her nurses, her teacher, all of us with her strength and her courage and her perseverance. She's amazing. And so she keeps getting stronger and stronger each day. She's just the epitome of strength and courage and maintaining a great outlook on life. So Katie, tonight is your night. She got to do spring sing today too, so we've just been performing all night long. But I promised you I had a surprise for you. And you remember at the big sting when you flipped the coin with Miss Venable? All right, well there was something from the big sting that you didn't get that night. So, because Coach Keaton had to bring it back to us. And this is your jersey that Coach Keaton wore that night in honor of you and the courageous battle you have put up. So, this is yours, sweet girl.
Katie, we're also going to give you a certificate for the Hornet Strength Award because you showed so much bravery and character. We're so proud of you, and we're rooting for you, and we want to get a good picture with you too. Is that okay? Okay.
Katie, it's not easy to come to school when you feel bad, is it? But we're proud that you did.
She did it every day. All right, are you ready? Do you want this in the picture, or do you want me to put it aside? It's up to you. You want it in the picture?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
A woman who knows what she wants.
That's right.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was thinking I'm taller than that. No, just.
Yes.
Okay, good. You good? I won't squeeze you out.
No.
Congratulations, young lady.
You want a picture with Miss
Well done.
Whitwater?
Yes, let's get a
Yeah,
picture with
yeah.
Miss McWhorter.
Good idea.
Here you go. You want to hold this?
You got it?
I don't feel like we're important in this photo. I think it's just the
Yeah.
Debbie
Yeah.
McWhorter has been her cheerleader. Beautiful.
There you go.
All right,
girl.
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Katie.
Good night.
Have a good summer.
Yeah. Next, we have student spotlight from high school. Dr. Paul?
Actually, teacher spotlight.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
But Karen, you're like a student. So,
And you were like John said.
yes. Surprise, she was one of Marcia's students.
Watch it, Smarty.
Yes.
Teacher spotlight.
Yes, and Yancey couldn't be here tonight. His wife broke her foot. That's on That's on the recording. He's watching from home right now. But yes, Jennifer, she broke her foot, and so he couldn't be here tonight. But he sent me what he wanted me to say to you, but I'm gonna add my own spin to it here too. But he said that we selected Miss Bear for her always positive attitude, willingness to go above and beyond for any student. It's a pleasure to work with Karen, and we're thankful to have her as part of our team. And I'll just add that every time I see Karen, she's smiling, and that's not something common in today's times. When I think ray of sunshine, I think Karen and Marcia. So, yeah, and Dave. But Karen, it really is a delight to work with you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You bring a lot to that building, and I know the kids look up to you.
Well, thank you. And also I wanted to thank y'all for all your support throughout this year and everything. So, thank you. I enjoy working for the school district. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Karen, we're going to give you a G and a quick
wonderful.
photo op.
Okay. Wonderful. That's exciting.
Yes, he's going to kill me.
So, text him back and tell him we're wishing for a speedy recovery.
Good.
I know.
Yeah, that was a much better story.
I know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I guess I'm going to round out the
You are, Bridget.
teacher spotlights. Okay, awesome.
Teacher spotlight.
Teacher spotlight. We've had an amazing day. We just graduated and had 80 kindergartners today. So this is just par for the course this afternoon. We're so excited. I always love to get up here and brag about teachers. There's nothing that makes me smile more other than talking about students. But I'm here to honor Michelle McCraw today. And Michelle is a veteran teacher. She's been teaching 22 years. She's taught all levels, pretty much, 5th grade and below. She's been a looping teacher. She's done ESL. She's just a really, multi-talented, faceted kind of lady. And one of the things that I appreciate most about her is, since I came on board, I want to say that's 4 or 5 years ago, she's been willing to be a lead teacher or co-lead teacher, and she's also one that I also value as a friend. So if something is going awry, she's one to tell me, and I appreciate that, because sometimes we kind of lose perspective at being out of the classroom. So one of the things that I ask her, whenever I'm just talking to her, I'm like, thinking about nowadays, teaching is so different than what you started with 22 years ago. And so one of the things I always ask is, what kind of advice do you have to give, new teachers? And she said, make sure it's a calling and not just a job. And whenever you got up there and spoke about your kids, you almost lost it, because she loves her kids that much. And it's not just a love like, I want to make sure you're safe and secure, but it's also a desire to bring out the best in them. You talk about good conversations, you talk about a mom away from home, and it's there, Michelle. You have a heart for these kids, and they know it, and they feel it every single day. So I love you, and I want to honor you. I'm getting a little emotional now, but I love you. And she's amazing. We want to keep her, and we want to clone her, and we want everybody to be a Michelle McCraw. That's my teacher spotlight.
I do enjoy working at the primary, not just because of the kids in that age group, but because of Bridget. She's a great administrator, and I really love our district and all that we're doing here, teaching the kids and what we value as educators.
And I get to brag on her again tomorrow at Wednesday, because we're going to honor her as a Teacher of the Year this year too.
All right, Michelle, you ready for your photo op? Sure.
Really short.
Yeah.
Really short.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, good job.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, it's
Sorry.
Thank you.
Hard to follow that one. Nobody's feet shine. No,
Marcy, are there any public comments? Oh, ma'am, not that I'm aware of. Public comments, anybody? We'll go on to the consent agenda. Do we need to pull out any of those topics? Can we go ahead and vote on that? Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Consent? Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
John, any questions? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now the information items, Ms. Williams. Are you ready? Did you want to say anything before she starts?
No, I'm thankful for Pam. We've put her off a month or two, and we decided that today was a good month to do our special ed audit follow-up. And so she put together a nice little presentation, and I'll scroll for you.
Okay. Okay, so tonight we're just going to look at how we've been doing coming out of the audit. We reported on it at the end of last year, and we're just going to look at some of the areas that we've had in growth this year. There were 4 areas that we needed to do some work in, and so we've had teachers and staff working hard on it. We looked at our admission, review, and dismissal process. Then the written work that goes along with that process, and then how to, coming out of the co-op and building that relationship here between campuses, and then also just between our staff in general. So we've worked on that. And then looking at least restrictive environment and moving us toward a more inclusive setting.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
This has not been a great night for me.
Technical difficulties. These are our numbers. On the left-hand side, you'll see where we closed out the end of last year. So we had 322 students in special education at the end of last year. When we look to this year, we've had a significant growth. We started out our year with 319 students, and at the end of, so we report on a 6 weeks period instead of 9. So at the end of our 5th 6 weeks, we had 346 students. And so when we're looking at that in testing perspective, last school year we had 54 students that we had initial referrals on, and we've tripled that amount this year. So it's been a significant area of growth. I mean, just over the state of Texas in general when it comes to special education. So we have
Our assessment staff has been very busy this year and looking at those students and how to better serve them. Some of the areas, looking a little more in depth at the ARD process, and sorry if I use acronyms, if you don't know what one is, stop me and I'll go back and cover it. Some of the areas of improvement that we needed to look more intently on our students. We needed to make their education more specialized. And so we worked with teachers, we developed better input forms. We've been working on that coordination between teacher and assessment, and then bringing all of that information to the ARD committee to make better decisions for our kids. And also with that, we've added service logs. They've been there, but we needed to improve in that area as well. And so our staff has worked, they've been amazing. They update when a schedule of service is developed. They go in, they have to track that time. It's put into the computer system, and that time that they log, it makes money for our district. So last school year, we made, what was it, senior year? Here you are. It was 500,000. Was that it? On our MSD reporting, 400. About 400,000 for the district that will go into the general education fund. So they've been working hard on that. We've also been working on the liaison piece, not just with staff, but with community and parents, and building that relationship and working with them and documenting that process. We've also looked at the needs that our teachers have had in the classroom, especially in our more self-contained settings. And we have added curriculum in there for them geared specifically towards the special needs in that area. And the final area that we were looking at is how we report that back to the parents, how we are documenting that in their files, and just being more specific at showing their strengths and weaknesses. I think the biggest part of being a special education teacher is the paperwork. It is all-consuming. If you look at professional journals, 5 years, generally teachers are hitting burnout in special education just because of the intense paperwork that goes with it. So we are working very hard to help alleviate that for some of our teachers. They put in a lot of hours, and so to help reduce that would be significant for them. And by doing that has been with the curriculum, like I said, for the self-contained classes. We've looked at, for this next school year, we're adding in a specific program that will help generate their paperwork that they need. They just have to list the strengths and weaknesses, and then it produces it for them. But it also gives them the resources they need to track that information and to work with the students in that area as well. We've also set up Google Classroom just to be able to stay in touch, and it's hard to pull 5 campuses together for monthly meetings, so we do a lot through Google Classrooms. We have interactive PowerPoints, we do have resources established there, and so that's a spot that they can go to for what they need, as well as contacting offices. Again, we use the, for our service logs, the MSB, they have that. And one of the biggest things with our testing, we have won some capacity funds from TEA the last 2 semesters. And so for each semester, they have awarded us $7,000, so we've made $14,000 this year on that. And with that, we have bought testing supplies for assessment, but we've also been able to add incentive days for them. So it's hard. I mean, paperwork, the reports that go in, and just having that time. They have, if they put in an extra 6 hours, then they've gotten incentive pay for that as well. We have worked really hard this year on just building our culture and climate with campus. and within our own network coming out of the co-op, making it what is that look like for GISD. And so beginning of the year, we had quite a few team building activities. We incorporated some monthly meetings for them. And we've taken that core that we've built and spread it out to the campuses, and worked on improving staffings on campuses for students, and just building that rapport within our own community. And then specifically in that area, looking at transition from campus to campus. That was a kind of a breakdown that we had, prepping the next campus, especially if it was a high-need student coming up. So we have improved in that area as well. In our last area, we had to look at least restrictive environment. So one of the things that our audit report said was that we had a significant number of students in self-contained settings, and they needed more exposure to being in the classroom and what was they were learning in there as well. So we have been, as a district, moving more towards an inclusive model and providing more of those services in the classroom. It's been a pretty big step for us. It's required a lot of folder audits and looking specifically and going back to the needs of the students. So we wanted to reduce what they were missing in the classroom. We've also done it through intervention times. Each campus has a specific intervention time, which allows the special education services or any of our special program services to intervene in that time so they're not missing core throughout the day. And then specifically targeting just a full continuum of service across. So they've done a lot of work this year. They've worked hard, so kudos to them. They've been awesome.
And you've done a really good job too, assembling a good team of people. And paperwork's hard on teachers in general, but especially SPED teachers. And so as we continue to get more and more special needs students, with a wider variety of issues, these guys work really hard to take care of everybody, so we appreciate you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I was going to ask you,
Okay.
have you seen a positive impact that it's bound to have from the greater individualization on those kids' into education plans?
Yes. So one of the areas that we had to target this year was in the area of STAR specifically, in our self-contained classrooms. And so we had to go in, and every student who did not meet standards on any of their STAR reports, we put an accelerated intervention plan into place. And that was 100% across. So if they didn't meet a certain aspect of it, then it was put into place. And so you just seeing the scores that we have so far and just the data that's come in from the classrooms and the interventions itself, you can see the growth, which is outstanding.
And you were good. And then you were talking about communication improving, particularly with parents. Have you seen a positive impact in ARD meetings related to that? I used to sit in ARD meetings and people would glaze over because there was very little connection with what was going on, or even with their child. It was rather generic. So I was very encouraged when I saw what you were trying to do with this.
It is, it's been, our parent participation has, I would say, at least improved over half of what it was. Previously, some of our parents wouldn't come to ARDS. Staff has worked on, I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes. You're sitting in those meetings and you get kind of wrapped up in what we call sped land. I mean, it's just, it's easy to sink into the language that is used and not explain it to parents. So that has been one of our goals, is to kind of cross that barrier and do more explaining and having that out there. So. And the staffings that we do have not just been with students. Some of our assessment staff has met beforehand with parents, so they have more interaction, able to go more in depth, just going over the reports that they have, and just being able to explain. And then for this next year, we're even looking further into expanding that and doing some parent classes and kind of opening up more in that area for them, resource-wise.
Thank you.
So.
Do you find it's hard to get parents here due to jobs and stuff? And are you able to plan meetings later so they can come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We start them early. We'll start them before 8 sometimes, and then we have them as late in the evening as we need to. We've got them up until like 5:30, so we do definitely to try to get them here. It's important. I mean, they have their say matters. I mean, it matters for their kids. So
the parenting classes sound pretty good.
I know, I'm pretty excited about that. I think it'll be awesome. One of our big things we did at the beginning of the year, we put out child find posters, and so that in itself increased even over last summer the parents that were coming in and starting to ask questions. So we're hoping to even improve in that area as well.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Frazier, your first topic for the evening.
Yes, sir.
You've been up there a while. Property taxable values.
Thank you. My apologies to Pam. Great job on the report, and a great job she's done with our sped department, especially since we brought it in-house from the co-op. And you're talking in the county, you're always talking about fiscal years. I was stuck in the old fiscal year. But you're exactly right. As we reported last month, next year we are anticipating as much as $850,000 in reimbursements from the Medicaid reimbursements, which is a $500,000 increase. And that even hit the paper recently. And so that's next year. So good job on that. So I stand corrected. All right, property values, preliminary property values have been granted to us by 2 appraisers, one here in Coryell, the other one in Bell County. Most of our school district falls within Coryell County. I'm referring to the chart that I prepared for you on page 74. If you'll take a look at that. We have what we call certified property net taxable values. And the column off to the left where it says 2019, it's in light yellow, which means those are estimates. You have that number, and then you have the one below that's called certified freeze adjusted taxable values, since a lot of our property values are frozen. So you can see that the net taxable values are going up to $865.7 million this year, which is about a 9% increase. And the frozen values, or adjustable frozen values, are going up to $732.1 million, or a 33 million increase. You flip the page to the back side, which is page 75 in your board book. I've estimated the tax levy based on these values to go up by $437,000, which is almost a 5% increase in the tax levy. What does this mean to GISD? It's more local taxes and less state revenues. Because you take your local share out of your state revenues and you'll get less from the state. So the bottom line is it's not much of an effect on the school district actually. It's just a matter of who gets the funding, local versus state. But these are the preliminaries, and the certifieds usually come out third week in July, so we're under what they call the time when you can dispute your taxes or your values, and so you're in that review period at this point. Any questions about these? It's just, they are what they are.
Questions?
Good news, bad news. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Mr. Harper, some cannabis products.
Yes, ma'am. This is an informational item. You may have seen an increase of hemp products out on the market being sold for different reasons, and the law enforcement has informed us that a lot of these are coming up positive for THC when they're not supposed to have THC in them. And so we had to put language in our handbook so that we can, protect our schools and students from these products being brought onto campus. What looks like just regular old hemp product or whatever they might use could contain THC. And so we have the verbiage that's in front of you in the board packet on the agenda item sheet. That's going to be in the handbook, and that is so that we can protect our students and our environment from these products coming in and having look-alike, and not supposed to have THC. We don't have to run a test on everything. We're just prohibiting them from coming on to school. Now, if you have a prescription, that's something different, and that'll be handled through the medical. The nurse will have that on file, and we'll handle that on a case-by-case situation. And so the county attorney has looked at this verbiage, and he thinks we have all the bases covered, and so that's going to be included in our handbook for next year in the code of conduct.
Mr. Bell's been watching this very closely in the county, and I think we're all in agreement that it's increasing as far as its prevalence, and I know it's concerning to him and to us, and so we're trying to take a hard stance on it so it doesn't become a pervasive issue with our students. So, Brandon, did you want to add anything else?
No, sir, it's here. We can do something about it.
Does the dog pick that up? Do the dogs pick that up?
The narcotics dogs, I don't know if they would or not. Whatever they've picked up so far hasn't been that. I don't know if they're trained to be able to sniff it out of those other ingredients or not. I'm not sure.
What type of products are they that you're seeing? I mean,
well,
obviously they're not smoking.
Right, but there's all types of oils and stuff that they can put in vaporizers, and there's things that they can just carry in and have.
They allow the use the vaporizers on school property?
No, sir. But they could have, if they do have one and it has that oil in it, then we're talking, violations of penal code and not just code of conduct. For
some of the hemp products look just like marijuana, and they're labeled hemp. They're selling them at some head shops in Coppers Cove right now. They're labeled hemp. They're testing positive for THC in the field test. We haven't got them back from the lab yet to see what the levels of THC are in them. Some of the products are THC free. Some of the hemp products are, but they have a similar effect when smoked and ingested in the many, many forms they come in. You ask what form it comes in, any form you can imagine, you can get it in some form or fashion at some varying levels. And one of the biggest problems that they've had, especially in these states where they've legalized marijuana, is you go to eat gummy bears or chocolate bars that have these products in them, and you eat a chocolate bar and you think, well, I feel just fine. Well, the problem is it hadn't taken effect yet, so you eat another chocolate bar. Well, then here in a little while you're in the hospital because you've already overdosed on them because you don't know what you're doing. And we need to get ahead of that issue. It's coming here. The legislature has 2 or 3 bills that are pending right now. I did not check today. The bills are dying daily in Austin right now because they haven't made it out of the committee in the other house, the other chamber that they've been sent to, and they haven't got referred to committee yet. The ones that hadn't got referred to another committee are dead already. Some of them are going to die in committee. They're never going to get out. Some of the marijuana bills are in that same boat. I think all of them are going to die except for the expansion of the Compassionate Use Act, which has to do with some of these CBD products that have low-level THC in them by prescription. Hoping all the rest of them die, but we'll see. We'll know by the end of the week, realistically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or
Okay, so first action item has to do with the high school renovation, and so we had a really good meeting last Monday in the high school library, and our architects and construction managers were there to help us look through it again in more depth. And so we also had Chief Gulke and Mr. Vadens. We had fire and police there to weigh in on the schematics, what they thought, and I thought some good insights were given by those folks too. And so as everyone's talking, board members and audience, I was trying to encapsulate, okay, what all am I hearing? And so I'm going to kind of go down this attachment here that I've made to kind of, it's an in-depth kind of roadmap as far as what should we do. And we'll talk about this when I get done kind of going through it, but basically one of the first big decisions was there were two alternates on the roofing, the sawtooth and the non-sawtooth. And so Mr. Mazonik said that the sawtooth would be $177,000 more expensive. And so I think the general consensus I was kind of getting was that we probably need to go with the alternate roofing to save that money. And so in doing so, we might be able to use that for, you know, consistent painting throughout or something of that nature. The second one would be to go ahead and pay or compensate WRA for their work on the schematic design so far if we approve it tonight. And so that's kind of the very first step that you guys would have in this whole process, is just the schematic approval. We really aren't too far along in this whole thing. It seems like we've been at it for an eternity, but it's really kind of in its infancy still. Another thing that we'll recommend is going ahead and doing the geotech study. That's a fancy way of saying they're going to bring in a drill and look at the dirt and make sure that the dirt is such that we can build and it's not too soft or too whatever. And if it is, they can do some things to make it work.
Even though there's a building already there.
Right,
We need to
right.
look and see if it's okay.
We need to make sure. Maybe we'll find some buried treasure there. So, again, to be more conservative fiscally, we don't want to buy or lease all those portable buildings until the bond passes. If the bond were to not pass, if the board chooses to go for a bond, we don't want to be out that money or to have those portable buildings out there and then we're stuck, for lack of a better word. Number 5 is all the different design things. And what Mary O'Brien kept saying is that a lot of these are more kind of a micro level thing. Like another thing that even came up today, our librarian would like to see a few more changes in the library design. And so those are things that we can get further down the road. Some of the things that I think that we discussed pretty heavily was the ceiling height. You know, the general consensus I think was we feel like in big rooms it needs to be taller to mitigate the sound and it doesn't feel weird just to have a big room with a low ceiling. But at the same time, the flip side, we don't want it to be so grandiose and high that we're either A, losing a bunch of money in the construction, or B, losing a lot of money heating and cooling it from then on out. So we're kind of thinking maybe 25 feet at its highest. And still get that natural lighting. That was another big thing that she kept saying, and we agree that natural lighting is good. Glass. Chief Golke thought that glass, especially in the doors, is a safety issue, that we'd rather have more of some other material with just a smaller amount of glass. Another issue with glass is just in the walls themselves, where we're thinking we might have more traditional wall material up to a certain height and then have glass, to where you've got still the best of both worlds, natural lighting, but maybe it's not so distracting or easier for someone to do something they shouldn't be doing when they're in there. The third bullet there has to do with the emergency fire lane. They thought that they could pour another $40,000 worth of concrete and complete that loop. I think Chief Vaden thought that would be a better scenario. Ms. O'Brien kind of thought that we could get the concrete at that rate since we have such a bulk that we're buying. Another thing that we wanted to save some money on is the landscaping. Some of these pictures look like they have some pretty elaborate landscaping. We said, well, maybe we can cut down on that to save some money. The CTE courtyard is fairly ornate right now. That's something else that will probably just be a work area. And so a lot of these things are things that we can suggest to Mary on down the line after the schematics to say, let's save some money here and there. Another one was the courtyard canopy, which is right now at $215,000. It looks nice, there's skylights, but again, it might be something, well, could we do something a little bit different to save some money? And so that seemed to be kind of the design elements that we were looking at. One of the biggest things that came out of the meeting though also was just making sure that we have adequate water pressure to put out a fire if there was ever a fire, especially a big fire. And so I know the city's been working on that to make sure they've got a plan to where, whether it be valves that need to be found and cut back on or whatever needs to happen, that we have sufficient water to make sure that the sprinklers work and all that sort of thing. So, saying all that, 6 and 7 are kind of two scenarios. 6 is if a bond is proposed in August and then passed in November, we need to be prepared to start working. Because one kind of scary number she said is that construction costs are going up. I think she said 1.1 million every 6 months. And so time is money. Of course, we don't, the flip side of that is we don't want to rush and do something incorrectly. And so if it passes in November, if you guys decide to go for a bond, we could start immediately moving electrical, water, fiber right after that. Then we would suggest the portable buildings coming in later. Like we might get them in right before spring break, then move the teachers over to spring break, and have construction begin then. And when we say construction, that would be demolition, abatement, the regular things that you consider construction. If it fails in November, then we would just hang on to those plans. We would have a full set of plans and then go, at a more favorable time when it might be approved. So it's one of those things where we would have something in hand if we ever decide to go back and address the issue again. So I think Mary was needing a roadmap as far as timing, how fast are we willing to go, and also it gives you guys a more detailed idea of what we would do in the next coming months. So what do you guys think about what we just said there?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
I do too.
All the high points from the meeting Monday night for sure.
If we approve the schematic tonight, it's the floor plan. And there's still some issues with what would this room be? Like Mr. Alderson's brought up, on the science labs, maybe we don't need 4. Do we change that back to just a regular or something like that? I think all those decisions can still be made further down the line. Same with the librarian wanting maybe the layout of her library a little bit different or something like that.
Square footage is still going to be the same.
Right, it's more of a micro level type thing. And so we can still do some finagling and things of that nature. Tonight, my recommendation, not that big, huge thing that I wrote, but would be to approve the schematic with the non-sawtooth roof. Then we would compensate the architects for their work on the design, which we owe them $173,250 right now for the schematics. The other recommendation is that the board approve the geotech study, which isn't too expensive. It's, in the grander scheme of things, it's $12,600, I think was the last estimate. And then that way we could keep them working on the documents. Everything else would just hold. We don't want to commit anything else until the bond passes. We don't want to start moving or getting the portables going because it's just too risky. And so that would be kind of the next step, and that, I think that would keep everyone busy.
And the geotech is necessary for them to proceed from where we are right now.
To do the design documents, yeah. That's how I perceived it, where that's kind of
I thought she said the other night right toward the end.
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
David, is there a second? John? Any discussion or questions? Okay, you've heard the motion. Seconded. All in favor say aye. Or raise your hand. Aye. Raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Barrett, I know you put a lot of time in on this, and we thank you.
You bet.
Well done.
But just for the record, you're just getting started.
I know. It's a long road to hoe.
It is.
And
it is. Hopefully it won't be uphill.
the scary thing too is if, the community is very supportive. I suspect that if y'all go for a bond, it will pass. But then the onus then is on the faculty. That is going to be a rough year and a half, year and 3/4. That's going to be a very inconvenient time.
Look at Pam and Debbie.
Yes. And so elementary,
been there, done.
Patience.
can attest to it.
Patience.
But
So worth it.
Debbie, Pam, isn't it all worthwhile after stuff? So I think so.
Thank you. Great job. Then we'll go to B, interlocal agreement with the county on the cross-country track.
Well, Mr. Belt has been working for us. He's been weighing in on cannabis and hemp, and now he's a versatile. He is a versatile guy. You can talk cross-country tracks with him. And Elliot Kelly and I and Mr. Toby Williams, we've all kind of discussed with he and Justin Latham, and we think we've come up with the solution now as far as putting some sort of substance out on that cross-country track to get those kids off the city streets. That's the main thing. the safety aspect of having kids run on the streets and roads when it's kind of dark or whatnot, we want to get them off of it. And so we walked out there, Elliot and Toby and I, after a rain, and it is very swampy. And mosquitoes are gigantic, and it is in need of something out there. And we identified probably about 3 low areas where we probably would need a culvert. But we'll have Justin, when he starts looking at it too, weigh in if we need more. But really having that track out there will get the kids off of the roads. And then when it is dry, they may want to run in the dirt. They'll have plenty of dirt out there to run on still. And so Brandon fixed up a simple but very straightforward little agreement for you guys to consider, where they would come in and help us lay 4 inches of road base. It's about 1 mile in length, and it lays out the materials cost being $4,500 and labor $33,000. And then they would go over that with a layer of CRS2 oil and cover it with a layer of 3/8 inch gravel. And that would cost about $6,800 for the materials and $1,800 for the labor on that part. And then the last thing would be the culverts. And they think they'd be about $240 a piece if they're 12 inch in diameter and 16 feet long. And
What's
so
that big a diameter?
12 inches a foot.
We may have some pipe that can be donated for that.
Okay.
Leftover stuff.
That'd be good. Otto, the city engineer, when he looked at it, that was one of the things he recommended, the 4 inches at least of road base, and then making sure your culverts are big enough around to handle that water rushing through.
And so things don't get hung in.
Yes, yes. And there are some kind of little natural, one in particular, a creek there, Toby. I named it Pollard Creek. It would be good to get those in there. So the grand total with 3 culverts, I believe we said would be $16,820. Now remember, we have that $25,000 that we've earmarked from Atmos when they came in and dug up and did their gas pipe laying, and so we've just been hanging on to that to use towards this project. And so we won't be out any additional money. In fact, we'll have some left over, hopefully, to do possibly some other things with. So my recommendation would be the board approve the interlocal agreement with the county to provide the labor and materials for the chip seal to be applied to the track.
Further recommendation, is there a motion?
So-
Cheyenne? Oh, how about second?
I'll second.
John seconded. Any questions?
Yes. This water line we talked about, the possibility of bringing one from the loop down to Marshall Street, will that go through there where the track will be?
There's an update on the water.
I talked with Chad with the city today. There's actually a good water main on 27th Street, so we'll just be running from 27th to Marshall. So there's really no need to go up on the hill. So
Good. Thank you.
that save a lot of money if we do have to. He's pretty confident we won't even have to do that when he, gets a chance to look for some more valves and stuff like that. But worst case scenario, that's where we'd have to pull from.
It runs in there between the churches and the practice field?
Right.
Okay.
Good.
Somebody told me that this issue had moved way up on the city's priority list since we had that meeting over there.
Yeah, the city, they're working with, schematics from the 1930s, trying to find valves, and sometimes valves that don't have metal on them anymore, so they look for them with, I believe, metal detectors at some point, and then sometimes they just have to look by using those old schematics. So I've seen them out looking, so I appreciate them helping, and we offered to help them in any way we could as well.
Supposedly they found one out in Lover's Lane here.
Good.
Today, I believe it was.
Good.
Located one.
It's helpful.
A valve.
For valve.
That'd be good.
It was broke in the off position, so they opened it back up, and it made a lot of difference.
Well, good.
Yeah.
How covered
Y'all
up
pat
was
Chad
it?
on the back if y'all see him. I've got a hard road to hoe.
How covered up was it to find it, Toby?
Sir?
How covered up was it to be able to find it?
I didn't get any particulars on it. I just asked him what shape was it, and he said, well, it was closed. He said, whoever cut it off, it broke it cutting it off, so. And they say we'll get it back on.
Didn't want to tell anybody.
No, exactly.
Get in trouble.
Yes,
Yes,
gonna
sir.
keep some
Serious
things under protection.
Well, thanks for doing that. Okay, any more questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries, thank you.
Brandon, thank you again.
Yes, sir. Thank Mr. Latham, we received.
Yes, yes, he's been very helpful too.
And then we have a social worker mental health.
Okay. Well, we've talked some about this informally about social work and mental health updates, and I think that I don't want to put words in the mouth of the board, but everyone feels like there's a lot of value in what social workers do. But tonight we're discussing, we're spending a lot of money on different things, and so we have to make the decision tonight on whether or not does this hit that tipping point to where we invest in another social worker, a second one. And so I've provided a lot of anecdotal type stories to the board, but really they've been requesting more hard and fast figures, some numbers. So that's what we'll give you tonight, some numbers to see if what we're looking at is worthwhile to do a second one. And so I've invited some guests tonight to help us, and we'll call you guys up in a moment. We don't want to put you on the spot right now, but Ms. Tyree, our etiquette teacher, and David White, our SRO, and they have some unique perspectives on social work and mental health and those sorts of things. Scott, this is something near and dear to him that he's been working on as well. But one of the first things that the board's kind of asking about is, well, how many other districts have these? And so I did a TASB survey. We looked it up on TASB, and I can print this out for you guys. But there's 106 school districts that reported on the survey that have social workers. And they vary in size, from the big ones to ones that maybe have only 1,000 kids. Then I started calling around, emailing some of our local folks, and I reached out to about 4 or 5 just here that we compete with a lot. China Springs said they've got 2. La Vega has 4 what they call communities and schools, and that's very equivalent to a social worker. A few of them I emailed didn't email me back. I don't know why. They may have been concerned what I was going to use the information for. But we could probably do some more calling around. But the last 2 springs, our county health nurse has administered a survey to our students. And so I wanted to show you guys, they asked on these surveys, which the kids just take individually, they don't put their name on it, and they just hand it back. But it asked a wide variety of health-related questions about drinking, driving, marijuana usage, and dating violence, and a lot of, I didn't even do charts and graphs on all that, but I just picked a few that we looked at, and it's by age group. So students not wearing a seatbelt while driving or riding in a vehicle. The 11 to 14-year-old category, 11% of them said yes, we've ridden in a vehicle where we don't wear our seatbelts. 14% in the next age group, and then 19% in the 18 and over group. So we drive or ride without wearing a seatbelt.
I have a question. The statistics, these numbers came from what?
Our students.
From which year?
Spring
where I'm
18.
going with this is, since we've had a social worker in place,
right.
Are these numbers improving, or are they the same?
Well, the first year in 2017, the survey wasn't the whole district. The first time they did it, they sampled like a couple of classes. And so we didn't have baseline data for like the whole district. So 18 is the whole enchilada. I emailed them this week and said, hey, where's the survey for 2019? They said, well, we're going to do it in the fall. So they are a little bit behind as far as their giving these out this year. And so that's a good question, though, to see what impact could we have on these types of things right here. Another one, if you've ridden in a vehicle driven by someone who's been drinking. 11 to 14 year category, 30% said yes. 15 to 17, 50% of those kids said yes, we've driven in it, a vehicle like that, or ridden. And then the 18 and over category, 45% of those kids said yes. Students who drive while texting or have ridden with a driver who texts. 42%, 55%, 53%. So really about half. Students who have had suicidal thoughts, 10% in 11 to 14, 27% in 15 to 17, 25% in 18 and over. Students who vape, 6%, 14%, 16%. Students who drink alcohol often. That was something in the survey they wanted to see. 5% in the youngest group, 22% 15 to 17, 31% 18 and plus. Students who use marijuana often, so not just experimenting, 5%, 9%, 13%. And I think the last one I did was students who use pain medication without prescription, so basically prescription pill abuse, 5, 7, and 9%. So interesting data, interesting questions that they ask of them. Some kind of startling responses. We hate to see that many kids saying that they've done that. So those were some of the numbers that we came up with for you guys to consider. And then I'm gonna let Scott kind of take over the transition here. ISD has had some.
Right, whenever they present it to us when we're going over the Guardian Plan about the safety program, it's a two-pronged approach. It's about safety and security, but also the prevention part. And so that's one of the key roles for the social worker is that prevention piece and having people that are licensed and experienced in that area so that we can further help all our students. And a lot of the ones that we're talking about is not a widespread school program. The social worker will handle all of these things as a group, but they handle one-on-one, individual situations. It's a student advocacy role where a student has struggles and has problems in the family, finding out their root cause and taking it from the schoolhouse out to help them in the family and help them in the community so that they can better operate in the school system. And so whenever Anna spoke, they talked about the mental health program and the growing need, and we see that. We see that on the mental health side, suicides. We have some national data here about, nationally it's up and on the state, but more importantly, look at our numbers. Look at what our kids said about just the social thought about, and it was 10% for 11 and 14-year-olds are thinking about suicide, 27% 15 through 17, and 25% 18 and over. They live in a different world than I grew up in, and suicide was not anything that was as prevalent, I thought, because I wasn't faced with it. I didn't see it on YouTube. There aren't videos out there telling me how to do it, and it's not publicized or I don't want to say brought into a celebrity form, but a lot of times it is celebrated. Look at all these ways you can do it, and people think they're being creative, and the kids are faced with that all the time. Their social media is with them everywhere. And so it's kind of what we're trying to address is that changing in environment that we see not just here, but nationwide. And so we are going to improve our program, mental health program, with our resource officers. That's our response. We have them coming in for security, but we also have them working on prevention. They're going to be building rapport with students, developing relationships with them, and also being able to come in and have classes and be informative. Driving without a seatbelt. That's going to be necessarily a program for the social worker, but that's something for the SRO to work with. But then you talk about marijuana use or alcohol use, then the social worker would be able to come in and talk about that aspect of how it disrupts your family, how it destroys things at home. But the SRO would talk about more about the legal side, the trouble that you could get into, the fines, the punishment. And so the problems that our students face are just not one avenue way of getting in trouble. It's multifaceted, and multiple ways of getting in trouble, multiple ways of not being successful. You need to have multiple approaches and multiple strategies. And so our plan is to be able to build up the security side and that response time, but also for our prevention of things that kids go through and these episodes that happen. A lot of them are considered chaotic, and chaos happens. A student wants to run out in traffic. Something else has happened. There's somebody up on the water tower. That's something that just recently happened. And I'm not trained in reacting in that way. My idea is to get them out of the street. But how do I handle that just as an educator? Just as somebody that cares about them is different than how a social worker would look at it, or different than how an SRO would look at it. And so having those multiple people in place to be able to handle that chaos responsibly and to do it right is something that's important. But it's also, it's a response. It's waiting for something to happen. And so how do we become more preventative whenever we're waiting for things to happen? And so the idea is to be able to respond when it first shows up. Not waiting till he's running out into the street or they're climbing up a water tower, but there are signs out there ahead of time that we know about. You hear it on the news. Well, I could have told you that kid was going to do that to the school. I saw this on Facebook. This is what's going on in the community. But by bringing all our resources together, we have a better picture of what what those children could be going through, and then addressing it at an earlier age, an earlier stage, so it doesn't develop into their only way out. My only way out is to commit suicide. My only way out is to wreak havoc and cause others to suffer the way that they feel that they've been suffering. And so we're trying to build that prevention team so that we can come in and be able to be more preventative in that way. And one of the reasons why it's hard for to identify is because are they kids being kids? Is this something we all go through? We need people that are trained to be able to look into those problems and be able to address it and say, okay, what is it? How do we crack that shell? We're all guarded with our families, and we don't want anybody coming in and judging us and telling us that we're doing it wrong. Our kids are no different. And so having a multiple avenues of approach to be able to build that relationship from different viewpoints, we're able to break into that shell easier and then be able to help that family out so that student will come to school, that student can be successful. And a lot of the programs that we work with the SRO and with the social worker, is from the schoolhouse door to the homes. In years past, whenever I've been a principal for many, many years, students needed some help outside the schoolhouse. If here's a brochure, good luck, you need to go get some help. And now we're able to offer them more help because that's their role of a social worker, is to take them further to be able to make sure that they get the help that they need so that they can become more stable and then come back to school and be more successful. Same thing with the SRO. They work both realms. They work the streets patrol and they're in our schools. They know the family situations that are going on out there. And so they're able to bring that piece to us and be able to say, this is what's going on behind the scenes. So how do we intervene for this student at this time with this situation so that maybe we can break that cycle? And it's not going to be easy, just one time you meet with them, one class, one lesson. This is an ongoing way to repair the life and stuff that's going on with some of these kids so that they can see a light at the end of the tunnel. They can be more successful as we go through, as they go through school. And so the social worker is one of those that is more of a student advocate and is more trained in chaos response, and then also finding those programs and building a program to help that student out. And the social worker has numbers, as you can see on the slide, what's recommended, but those are national numbers, and this is just a guide. I'm looking at what we deal with here at Gatesville ISD, and those numbers were provided on the budget agenda item. And so you can see the caseload that the social worker has. And we've talked a lot about response and responding early as a way of preventing it, but also what's true prevention? True prevention is teaching them not to be in that situation in the first place, teaching them some confidence, some skills, so that they can make better decisions. And how many schools do you know have an etiquette teacher or an etiquette class? So that's part of our true prevention, is being able to teach certain students to say, you know what, this is the proper way of doing things. Build up that self-respect, that self-confidence, so that they don't turn to wanting to hurt themselves or hurt others. And the other night at the dinner with our etiquette graduate and mentor appreciation dinner, we served, not we, Mrs. Tyree and her students served 211 dinners, 211. There's only 35 students in her etiquette class. So think about the ripple effect of 35 students in an etiquette class and 211 family members and people that cared about them showed up for the dinner. And it was well done. It was put on by them, all by them, and a lot of pride was in that room whenever they came in there. 70% of those students didn't go back to ISS whenever they started going into their etiquette class. And we've had parents come back and tell us that my student would not miss because today's their etiquette class. They're going to be in Miss Angie's class, and they didn't want to miss. It became that important to them to be a part of that etiquette training. 30% of the etiquette students were passed on to the social worker. They had needs greater than what we could deal with at the campus level. And it was a combination of both the etiquette and the social worker that brought these families together, because it wasn't just teaching them in their classroom. This went back to their homes, and working with them on some home problems brought all 211 to the dinner. And whenever you said, okay, the program's in it, thanks a lot for coming, I thought it was going to be mass exodus, right? We've been here too long, let's get out of here. Chairs started moving, and they were rushing the stage. They were going over to the photo booth. How many families did you see going over there, standing in line, waiting to take pictures with their friends, with families, and families together? And these are families that I have history with. And I was surprised, and pleasantly surprised. There was a lot of good things that happened with the etiquette class. And so that's true prevention, is being able to teach that as we go. But those students aren't going to be able to take that and transfer it elsewhere unless we can continue on with that. And so we're expanding etiquette. It's going to be taught at junior high. Coach Barron is going to teach it in her leadership class. And then Miss Tyree is going over to high school to be our culinary arts teacher, and it's going to be part of her culinary arts class. And so that's going to be an expansion of that etiquette teaching, but we also have room to expand as well, because at intermediate it'll still be selected students. But after people saw what was on Facebook and after people saw what happened at the dinner, I've had them come up and say, how does my kid get in that class? So I think the more exposure they have, the more that's going to grow in that area. But there again, that's one approach to prevention. Expanding our SROs is another approach to prevention, and then having our social worker expand that program is another way of helping all students and their families to be more successful.
I think another concern the board may have is like how many, it's a big issue, and how do we get our arms around it, and are we going to come back here in 2-3 months and say, well, now we need a third one? And so that would be something where I would say that 2 is what we will stick with. That it's too much for one person. 2, I think handling it would be a lot more manageable.
And also, we're making other steps. You know, the counselors are not test administrators anymore. So the testing has been moved to the ICs. And so that huge load that they were carrying for testing is now an opportunity to be able to work with students, but understanding their limitations. Okay, they come in, and what are our tiers? What are our levels of assistance for students whenever an issue first comes up? You hear a rumor, then what do we do to be able to help that rumor out? A student is cutting, well, who's best to intervene with that student who's cutting on their wrist? Something's happening with the family, who's best to be able to get those resources? And so a better working and uniting of all our different levels of people on the campuses is going to improve. And so having one social worker and even 2 social workers or a case manager is going to be able to help manage all that. Our communication about putting in the tiers and the levels of working with students and families is only going to make that better. And I don't see, because if we keep adding social workers, then we're taking more things off the campus where they don't work with them every day. And now that's becoming a whole big, another entity and department all within itself. We have to be able to expand this program from within as well. It's not just hire more people, hire another social worker. They'll handle it, they'll handle it. It's not about passing off the torch. It's about what team can we put together so they can work on it at the different levels. And something that, the threat assessment thing, which I didn't speak about, the governor has a plan talking about mental first aid training, which we do that with our nurses and counselors and mentors, some of our mentors. We want to do that with all teachers. We want to be able to expand the idea of mental health. It's not just, some craziness that goes on with certain, kids and families. It's something that we all experience at some point in time. So how can we intervene at those various times when it's a small problem? Not wait till it's a big problem. It's like, well, here they come again. It's just something that just keeps rolling over, and that snowball gets bigger and bigger, and now we have a bigger issue. So being late to the game about hiring a social worker, we're already trying to dismantle a huge snowball that's already built up, but then being able to hire another social worker, we're able to get there before those snowballs build up to something that's so heavy to carry. And going back to the threat assessment, if a student says, I'm going to kill somebody, I'm going to kill myself, we don't just let that lie there anymore. We can't just say, stop it. You don't mean that. We have to look into it. They write a story and they have death written in there like 15 times, and the story's all about killing somebody or dying. We have to look into it. Now, are they a mass murderer? Are they somebody that's coming in to wreak havoc on our campuses? Could be a kid that's just writing a story about a video game or something that they fantasize about. I mean, you watch movies all the time. Some of you watch stories about that, and we're desensitized to a lot of it. But we have to look into it. So we do a threat assessment. Social worker comes in. We're going to add the SROs to it. And we have to ask certain questions and say, okay, let's get the best picture about this student. And then how do we intervene, and where do we intervene? Is this a social problem at home? Is this something that's going on at school? What is the support group around that student? So we have to dive into it and just not leave it alone. Students are posting things all the time on the web, and that comes to our attention. Well, that's an outside problem, right? They did it at home, but social media is everywhere. It is now a school problem because all the kids are passing it around. Did you see what was posted there? Did you see what was going on? So now we have to do that threat assessment on a student that just popped on our radar because they were mad one night and posted something on the internet. We have to look at it. We have software that a student can punch in kill, death, dying, and we get an email. It's one of those taboo words. And so we have to look into it. And whenever they did the Holocaust lesson at intermediate, My goodness, there's a bunch of them. But you know, we can look at them and we can say, this is a lesson, what's going on. But another student saying, I hate my life, I wish I was dead, and it's just a random message that they're typing in, you know, one of the documents. Then we take that down and talk to the counselor. Oh yes, I have a history with that student, or maybe not. It's something we have to look into. So it's a growing problem that we have to be able to address, and not just say it's not going to happen here or somebody else will take care of it. And that's something about adding more and more people to it. It has to be more of a collective. But the current caseload we have is very high, and it's very tough for one person to be able to manage with that sort of expertise and be able to get them the proper help. Because a lot of outside agencies, they want to talk to the social worker. You know, you're just the principal, you're just an admin. Where's your social worker that kind of understands? On the other side of that, I've been sitting in CPS meetings where they're putting up a smoke screen, and the social worker's like going, nope, that's not right. That's not right. You have this capability, you have this opportunity, and so then they start backpedaling because they can't bluff us. And so we're trying to work and build that community partnership as well. Working with probation, they understand that same language. Working with our county attorney, working with our judges. All of that is building. We're developing, and we're early into this. I mean, we just started this first year of trying to build putting a concerted effort in making sure we have partners out in the community, so that, you know, it's not just us, but we are the ones that touch their life almost every day if we can get them to school. And so that's why it's important for us to take these measures to go through.
Ms. Tyree, did you want to add?
Actually, he's hit all the points that I was going to bring up, but I will say that there were incidents where I needed more help because the children needed more help. That's the main thing. We want to make sure that we get to the children, because we can do all day long, how to move a fork, how to whatever. The main thing is that we get to the children. Sometimes in our etiquette, we would teach them where to go, but if you get a child that you just can't help, it's bigger than learning manners or social. It's something at home. I can't go to their home, but that's the social worker's job. I understand it's from the school to the street, so we need them to be able to get there. How many incidents are going on? Is there enough for more than one? That's the question. Is there? I mean, look at our incidents. What's happening? Do we need more than one? That's the question, more than anything else. It's that, I mean, for me, I had an amazing time. And thank you again, board, for coming to our dinner. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to work with these amazing students. Like I said, I only had 35, but out of 200-something parents and other children coming, I was just impressed with what they did, how they brought out, how they got all dressed up, my kids were dressed up. I mean, it makes me want to cry because it was so exciting. But again, it's the children that matter. We've got to go to the street to get the children, if that's what they need from us. One person might not be able to do it all, but if it takes two, that's what we have to do. I mean, I've seen it with only 35 children, and it was serious. I had some of the, you know, they weren't the easiest ones, so, but they were the best ones, I'll tell you that. Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
And she also did a dual role. She was also one of our character coaches that interviewed 292 students. Our character coaches interviewed those schools that were not connected to school. They didn't participate in any extracurricular activities. And so she got to hear firsthand a lot of the struggles that they had and referred them back to the social worker so that we could get the help that they need, whether it was counseling, whether it was just getting them a refrigerator because they didn't have one at home, getting their lights turned on because they didn't have money for that. The social worker seeks those things out for them so that the student has a stable home, so that then it trickles down so the student can come to school and be successful. A lot of things that we're not aware of, the social worker is aware of it. And they have a different level of confidentiality as well. They have to protect their licensing because they're licensed through the state. So a lot of things they handle is just a one-on-one individual basis. We don't get this report of all the different things that are going on because it's confidential, the social worker and the family, so that they can get the help, and it builds that trust for them as well.
Damien, did you have any closing thoughts?
No, come on.
So, I'm sure most of y'all know who I am. I've been a police officer for like 9 years. I've also been a mental health officer for over 5 years, and I am a product of a mental health household. My father was a severe PTSD Vietnam veteran. My mother had severe depression with auditory hallucinations. So I grew up in a really fun house, so this is real serious for me. I got a bunch of stats if you want to hear them. I mean, everyone knows that we have some serious issues. 1 in 10 young Americans have a period of major depression. That was me. I was suicidal when I was 16. didn't tell a single soul. No one had any clue that I wanted to kill myself. And we didn't know at that time how to get anyone to give anyone kind of help. It's a real big issue. I've been on the streets for 9 years. I've seen everything from people trying to cut themselves. I unfortunately was the one who helped assist with the person on the water tower. That was a major stress incident for us. A lot of Americans just have, a lot of people just have serious mental health issues. And as far as putting a price tag on something, I know money's important, but you'll never know who all you save. And that's the big thing about this. You will never know if you saved a life. You will never know if you intervened that one time that someone thought, I'm really about to kill myself, or I'm just having a real bad day. I try every day to go by and I talk to our behavioral students. I go through AAP, I try to talk to them. I let all these kids know, hey, if you need to talk to somebody, I'm willing to listen, because I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone there willing to listen to me when I was 16. And I think that's a big thing. Suicide is the third leading cause of death for children 10 to 24. That's our age group. That's what we're looking at. And most people, about 50% of all mental illness starts showing up around the age of 14. And 1 in 5 Americans will have mental illness. That's how big this issue is. You can think it's not going to happen, but look how many people in this room. There's a high chance that several of us have mental illness, whether it be depression, anxiety, any of that. It's not just suicide, but you run into people with social anxieties, stuff like that. It's a real big issue, and thankfully we're having a better issue. We can do a lot more here at the school. We can do a lot more preventive maintenance, because once you're on the street, it's all reactive. You know, thankfully we have a mental crisis intervention training class now. I've been to over 120 hours worth of CIT training, and it's just, you know, we have some substance abuse issues here. Methamphetamines is a problem in this town. It's always going to be a problem in this town. But because of that, we got parents who aren't raising their kids anymore. We got kids being raised by their grandparents. We have all these serious factors of all these kids over here that are not in stable households. And if you already have a possibility of having mental illness, if you're already, and that's some big factors, is just if your family has mental illness history, you know, that can cause a lot of problems. We have a lot of at-risk kids. We have way more kids here that are at risk than we even know about. And we probably will never know that they're at risk until something serious happens. This is our time bomb. If you want to talk about what's the time bomb at this school, this is our time bomb. Because one of these kids may be the one that one day has a real bad day and decides to come to the school and does something stupid. Because your average person who doesn't have mental illness isn't going to have a really bad day and decide they want to hurt somebody like that. That's just not how that normally works. And I'm not saying that we should be afraid of people with mental illness, because normally they're the victims. There are victims. But if you're already super bipolar and you're not medicated, because the average time that you get intervention after you start having symptoms is 8 to 10 years. And so think about that. We have a 14-year-old person here with severe bipolar we don't even know about. They might not get any help till they're 22, so they got 8 years of hormones and high school. You're looking at someone who's going to snap one day. And that's why we need as much help as we can get. I know the more SROs we're going to have is a huge help, but this is a real big issue. This is a real big issue for me, because our number one thing should be trying to keep our kids safe. And sometimes the biggest threat our kids have is themselves. So, does anyone have any questions for me? I can literally go on for 20 hours about mental health. But it's a big issue. 37% of our students with a mental health condition age 14 and older drop out of school. That's what it means at school, and it means to our attendance rates. And 70% of youth in state and local juvenile detention centers have a mental illness. It's a real big issue, and it's only going to get worse because of the internet. It's only going to get worse because now we're starting to see kids glorify suicide and destructive acts like school shootings. We have to get a handle on this. And I know nobody wants to get a whole bunch of like 3, 4, I mean, in my perfect world, you know, what was it, like 1 for every 250 kids? That'd be amazing. It's not realistic. I know it's not. But the more we can have, the better. The more we can have to help these kids, the better. And that's my main concern, because I know a lot of y'all have kids here, kids and grandkids. I want them all to be safe. So.
Have you found that some you've shared your experience with have opened up to you?
Absolutely. I will be the first one to tell you, and I've had to disclose this in a background check. I had a substance abuse issue when I was 18 to 20. I got heavy into hard drugs. And for being able to talk about that and tell these kids, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel, hey, you can raise yourself up has helped some of them come and talk to me about it. It's been a big help. So.
Question from Miss Angela and Scott, I believe. So in intermediate, you had like 35 kids, and you're going to go teach culinary arts now, and you're going to have how many students there?
I'm not sure, sir. I don't know.
Just give me a rough idea of somebody.
Probably say 60.
60. And those are the kids. Those are the only kids in high school that will get your etiquette.
Etiquette, yes, sir.
Etiquette.
That's correct.
So don't we need another? I mean, we're doing pretty good, sounds like, in junior high carrying this etiquette program on, but I think we need to expand it in high school.
When I went to school, we learned the etiquette in the classroom. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You know, we learned all that. Of course, that was
a lot of that's taught at home.
We learned that in PE, getting whoopings for saying yeah. I mean, that's how I learned to say yes, sir. A little bit different than what Angela's been through. But I'm afraid there's going to be a lot of kids missed in high school because they're only going to get an opportunity at it if they are in culinary art or culinary cooking.
And that's an area that we can expand in. I mean, we've already got it going across to 3 different campuses, so they can track some students all the way through, but we'll have room to grow at intermediate and at high school and at junior high as we move forward.
With our program in intermediate, you've already created some records of how many of the help that's been done. You've seen kids not go back. But Rob asked or somebody about some kind of records with their social workers, and there wasn't any yet. So we don't know what we've helped there. But this is a program too that we know we've helped.
Junior high, all students will be taught in junior high. So that's
and I like that, but it's going to be dropped when it hits high school, and I think something needs to change.
But the other part is
flex scheduling, you know, the flex time. It might be that she could, you know,
well, she probably could partner with some other programs throughout the year. It may not be like an everyday thing or an every month thing. It may be every 6
weeks. Intermediate was once a week, and it'll be that way.
Is there any way she could be used for an in-service for the teachers? Because the teachers could learn a little bit to help them through with.
But that goes back to what Rob said about learning that in the classroom, that we model these things for our students, but then it's not a purposeful, deliberate instruction on how to do things. Because I believe that if you model professionalism, others will model it too.
And I'm not saying the teachers aren't professional, don't get me wrong there, but she has little tricks, I believe, that gets their attention.
But also, Angela's got she has the it factor. I mean, kids relate to her.
It's a tone of voice usually that she has, I think.
But you know, the way she snapped them to attention and the way they responded back to her, every soldier goes through that in basic training, every one. But not everyone comes out and transferring that same discipline to other areas. And so it does take that special person. It's just not, you know, throwing more teachers, say we need to have these teachers here and put it in to teach etiquette. It has to be the right teacher. And also saying, okay, here are teachers, all of you now are going to be teaching etiquette. Here's something to do in your class. Well, that's just another prep, or it's another.
I don't think it's about teaching. I think it's just about putting that little thing in their mind to think about. And we do all kinds of in-services. I know I've heard my wife talk about them through the years, that some of them are absolutely boring as can be. And if you can learn something from it, then the state says you got to have it, right? You got to have so many in-services.
But there's also the in-service on everything else that we have to do with their content area, with security and safety. All those things are a part of it. And you know, Angela's class, she's just not, you know, making a suggestion. This is your class. This is your lesson. This is how you're getting graded on. And I mean, it's just a deliberate delivery. In-services, a lot of times we go at the beginning of the year and say, okay, here's your in-service. Now for the next 187 days, go implement it. It has to be that constant reinforcement, that constant bring it back.
I got you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So statistically though, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on average per month, there were 20 student family contacts for crisis, right? So 10 months, about 200 of these phone calls. So I mean, I don't know what these crises were.
Right,
but
they vary.
I just did something. And then there were homeless, 45 homeless students that our social worker helped. That some of them probably would have went unknown.
Yes, a lot of them
had
do.
she not been here. And then there's, I mean, we're just going through here. What is another one? The DAP, 18 students, 111 contacts and interviews, plans and counseling, daily interaction, character coach,
And those are,
I know you were wanting numbers, and those aren't exact numbers, but, it's pretty important that 45 of our homeless students got some help, in my opinion. That is a number, of some sort. It's not
It is some
exactly.
records.
So, it's
and
great.
it's a lot, sofa surfing and things, they don't have that permanent home, steady home, they hop around, and so they are under McKinney-Vento federal act.
From an
statute.
expense standpoint, every opening that happens, every time we get a resignation, we scrutinize that position to whether we should replace it. Should we replace it if it's a professional with a paraprofessional? Do we replace it with a part-time person? And I've done some of that even this week. And so the directors and principals can attest, they're all looking at me with a nasty look right now, that we continue to save money. And so when we're asking you for one of these, it's not that we're willy-nilly with the funding. We're really trying to save money, but we feel like this one in particular is very important.
Back to something David was talking about, and Ms. Tyree or Mr. Harper, one of y'all correct me, but that was a targeted population, right? In the they were chosen, handpicked to participate in the program, I believe. Is that
Mr.
correct?
Smith, yes.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, I could have addressed Steve, sorry. Yeah, so, and then back to the culinary, that's, you signed up for culinary. That's unless y'all change things.
Right, these kids are gonna be, there's kids in high school that can use it that are gonna be missed.
Right. And there were probably kids at intermediate that may have been,
So if we continue with the etiquette and expand that if we can, and get the social worker who helps with the family issues, who is able to go to the home and show more, or find resources within the county, then that's gonna help a lot, all the way around.
Scott, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, based on the identifiable needs of our students, their families, and our community, I recommend the district hire a second licensed social worker or case manager to continue supporting our current caseload and continue expanding our partnership with outside services.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Cheyenne, second? I'll second. Any more discussion?
Damien, thank you for everything you shared.
Yes.
I would like to say that I was thinking back to our graduating class, and I know of 3 for sure that committed suicide.
Yes.
Not while we were in school. I think there's more actually, but I was talking to Ricky, and one of the people that committed suicide, his sibling is connected to our program in a way, and she shared with me how she wished we would have had somebody to reach him, because she said in school, she looking back, she probably, that there were signs that they did not catch, and that has stuck with me. And I think if it's for one kid.
I want to thank you too for opening it up. I appreciate that for all the other kids. Yes.
One thing about social workers, and I don't know how you would ever accomplish it, but I'm afraid that y'all mentioned the earlier teachers with burnout. A social worker with the amount of work they can do must be totally overwhelmed and literally work themselves to death. And I don't know how you can, when you get a person that wants to be a social worker and take care of all the kids, they have trouble shutting it down, ending the day. And they go for one full year and they work themselves to death.
Well, it's not a job, it's a calling for them.
Yeah, and it's not an 8 to 5, it's more of a 5 to 9 in the evening, I think.
If you're in a first grade class, you do that. And with your own group, you're worried about them, whether they're having supper, if they're getting help, if they have a bed to sleep in.
It's not just first grade.
It's the whole thing, y'all. It is.
It's
Every
the motherly
teacher does that.
instinct is what it is.
Well, it's just caring about them and wanting the best for them. And,
So
and
that's,
letting them have every
I don't know how
advantage.
we can help that, but that's a concern.
And I think by paying attention and every year, reviewing the situation, the caseload, How do we develop those tiers? How do we spread that around for our community? It takes a village, and we're not trying to create another hut for everybody to shove the kids to. We want to make sure that everybody gets the same training, everybody understands what we're dealing with, and be able to identify which situations and which kids need to go to which partner in this to be able to serve all their needs.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Anybody else? Comment?
I just want to say, I'm not about throwing money at things. I've never been about that. But from both a student safety standpoint and a student achievement standpoint, I think it's important, just for my 2 cents worth.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody who had a part of that. Mr. Webb, Shane, you're up. Innovative course offerings.
Yes, ma'am. How's everybody tonight? Well, I want to come talk to you guys about an action item here. Couple courses that we're looking at offering at the high school next year are considered what TEA calls an innovative course. And to offer an innovative course, it's something a little out of the ordinary. It's where maybe another district in the state of Texas has developed it and have got it approved, but TEA has allowed where districts can also offer those courses for a period of time. And so it allows students to be able to master the additional knowledge and skills and competencies not included in the current required curriculum. And so we're looking at offering 2 additional courses next year. One of them is called General Employability Skills. It's more geared toward a special education student, probably more in the self-contained classroom. A lot of times they go out with Mr. Walter and they have work skills. They work on employability type skills and job skills, and so this would just be it actually counts as a CTE course that would allow them to actually get a credit in that, as opposed to being like a VAC type vocational credit. So that's one of them, and the second one is a computer-aided design and drafting course, and this would be through our engineering program, engineering pathway. Mr. Lovejoy teaches that now, and he already does some computer-aided design in one of his engineering design classes, but this would kind of advance that a little bit further. And so these courses have a specific code on them that has an N on it, and a PEAMS coding that makes it an innovative course. So does anybody have any questions about either of these courses? It's just something that we would like to offer, and so you have to have board approval before you can offer these courses.
In that first course, I was trying to read this one, got sidetracked. Talked about skills for general employment. Is that right? You gotta teach them how to interview. Is there anything that teaches them how to go interview for a job?
Yeah, that would be part of it.
That'd be part. Every kid ought to go through it. You've never interviewed anybody for a job. It's amazing nowadays.
Yeah, and that should be part of their CTE in their program. It's part of their TEAGs now. So, but this would be, like I said, would be for a self-contained special ed student when they're out getting some of that work-based experience. Like right now, our kids have been to Hillside Nursing in the past. They go to HEB right now, and so it would be more geared for those students.
So that would be transitions, transition plans for kids who have graduated?
Or a kid that might be a junior or a senior that
Okay.
has room in their
But those
schedule.
also who have graduated?
Yep. So I recommend that the Gatesville ISD Board of Trustees approve the innovative course offerings for the 2019-2020 school year so that our students may take advantage of these classes.
I'll make that motion.
All right, David, you make the motion. Charles will second it. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you, motion carries, thank you.
Just keep training them.
We're working on it.
We need them.
Mr. Frazier, you have
Huh?
the lucky job of insurance. Yeah, everybody's favorite.
Yeah, a lot on the plate tonight. One of the important benefits that we provide for our staff is medical insurance. Medical insurance is about a $2.6 million cost for the district, and it's basically shared 50-50 pretty much with the employees paying part of the premium so that we contribute so much toward those ourselves. Our contribution is actually pretty generous compared to other districts. This is one of the places I think we can shine as a school district. We just got these figures updated this morning. I didn't have them in time to put them into the board book, but this gives you an idea of a number of school districts in our area and how much each school district is providing for their employees' health insurance and where we fit. We're up there in the top 1/3 of the group, $367 a month. The minimum state is $225. That's the minimum that you can do. And so we just now got our insurance rate increases for next year, 19 and 20. And it's usually a very sad report because they always have been going up pretty significantly. And for many, many years, the district did not have wherewithal to increase the contribution for the employees. Well, this time around, this is one of the smallest increases I've ever seen. In fact, we have nearly, if you go over to that chart on page 140, that's an excellent kind of overview of our health care plan. On page 140. On the left side, keep on going. On the left side, we have 4 fiscal years, 15-16 all the way to 18-19, which is the current fiscal year. Keep on going, Barrett. There you go. All right. So here's a really good synopsis of our healthcare plan for the last several years. We have Scott and White. I don't know, over here for you guys has been going down from 53 down to 43 in these 4 years. That's a 10% drop in that coverage. The trend is for the Active Care 1, which is a high deductible plan. That's going to be the trend. It's cheaper to get into. It has a high deductible, and we encourage folks to get into these health savings accounts to put the difference that they're saving into a health savings account and let that build up for when they need it. So you see the Active Care 1 went from 7% to 11 to 16, and now it's 20. So it's growing. Scott and White purchased First Care, and can you scroll to the right, Barrett? You'll see what happened to Scott and White rates. They went down. Yeah. Have you ever seen that before?
Never. No, never.
Yeah.
Never.
So we have, 43% of our staff is on Scott and White. And their premiums are going down next year. That's a good thing. This one here, First Care, went up a little bit. And these are going up very reasonable, 2.9% increase from the high deductible. These over here are larger, but very few people are taking those plans. So the good news is that our staff is finally going to get a break. And this is not a sad story like it always is every year, where we sit here and take us. We don't have any choice but to just take it, what they give us as far as these rates. This time, almost half our staff are going to have a reduction in their premiums, and the rest of them are going to have a very reasonable increase. We have pinned our monthly contribution to the employees to the high deductible plan. There was a time when employers provided their employees with health insurance. A lot of times it was even family coverage, but certainly employee only was a commitment that we as a district are making. And the least affordable employee only coverage is the high deductible plan. And that rate is currently $361, I believe, $367, and it's going up $11 to $378. So management is recommending that we keep our contributions to the employees pegged at that high definition, that high definition. Think about TVs now. High deductible. It's a high definition, all right? The high deductible plan, and so we will match that up to $378 for next year. The cost to do that, $11 a month times 12 months times 317 employees that are currently on it is a little chunk of change, but it's $40,000. But that's about a 3%, I think, increase on the part that we're doing, which is pretty small. So that's our recommendation. I have in your packet included the different plans that are being offered. In these handouts, you can see the changes that are being made from this year to next year. Most of the plans are going up on deductibles, on out-of-pocket, and if you'll take a look at, for instance, at that high deductible plan, this is on page 136 of your board book. The out-of-pocket for out-of-network is going up to $40,000 for a family, $20,000 for the employee. That's out-of-network. So you see what's going on is they're really exposing the employees to higher and higher maximum exposures. In service or in networks, the deductible is going from $66.50 to $67.50 for the employee, and $13.3 to $13.5 for the family. So it's very, as far as that goes, it's a pretty reasonable increase. But again, you have a pretty high exposure with these deductibles and these out-of-pockets. So that's, even though you may not have much of a rate increase, they're getting you there. And so that's why these health savings accounts are really an important tool, and we offer those here at our district to the employees, and we have a growing number who are participating in those. So action item tonight, based on this good news, is that we continue to provide our employees with the least affordable, least cost for the health care high deductible plan with an increase of $11 a month to $378. That's what we're proposing, and that's what we hope you'll be voting on here tonight.
So you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So
John, second. Rob? Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Motion
It's good
carries.
news to the staff. Thank you very much for taking care of it.
You might as well just stay up, right?
You want to stand up?
You have the next 4 items.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. All right, so what's the next item here?
The audit firm.
The audit firm?
Page
Insurance.
141.
What page?
141.
141?
These are action items.
Oh, they're bored to death.
Okay, I took things out.
She's got to get some.
Okay, so we are in the third year of our audit with Lott Vernon, which is a CPA firm out of Temple. And they've done our audit now for quite a few years. And we went to bid on the audit about in 2017. And our commitment was to stay with the winning bidder for 5 years and maybe consider going out for bids every 5 years. Audits is not something you generally want to do, change auditors very often, but it's something that you want to take a look at periodically. So this being our third year, the cost is $22,000 for the annual audit. And they'll actually start the preliminary audit work in June, so it's already coming up. This will be the audit for the fiscal year ending August 31 of 2019. So we're here to recommend to the board that we engage the firm of Lott Vernon to conduct our annual audit once again. And again, this is the third of a 5-year commitment to them. Any questions about the audits?
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Charles, second, David. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next item, proposed board budget and tax rate workshop. All right, this is one of your fun events every year. And we're going to give you plenty of time just to focus on the budget. We're going to have a special session just on budget. And we're recommending Monday, August 12th, which is the week before the regular August board meeting, for us to discuss all about the budget for 19 and 20 and the proposed tax rates that we will be putting up for approval at the end of August. At this point, we're not projecting any tax increases on our tax rates. But does that budget date work for everybody? And we're looking at 5:30 p.m. Does that work for you?
I'll tell you on the August the 10th.
They're an easy group to work with.
It should, but I can't predict the future that far. I'll be here if I can.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Anyway, that's what we'll shoot for. And this will be, at this particular workshop, I'll have the privilege of giving you an overview of how the taxes work and how the effect of increase in tax values takes a 2-year lag from TEA. I got to explain all that to you. This is a new thing that we got to do. So we'll go through that at the budget workshop there in early August.
All right, you've heard that recommendation for Monday, August 12th.
What is the, oh, I'm sorry. Don't ask that question.
Okay, is there a motion to pass this? Cheyenne, second. Rob, any now questions?
This has to be approved by a certain day, is that correct? And we waited until the very last minute to do it last year. Are we doing that again?
No, this is ahead of last year.
Okay. Because last year we had like 2 or 3 days.
It was last year we did it at the same time as the regular August board meeting.
We didn't have a real workshop on it.
This is 2.5 weeks before.
So this is a week before the August board meeting.
Yeah, I just remember if
strictly
something was to happen, if there was some incorrect information in the document, even that had to be corrected, we would have been in a storm last year, but we got plenty of time this year. Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Ms. Lee, may I ask a question?
Can you ask a question? Anybody out there?
Well, I had this same question last year, and I got an answer, but.
But it could be something you ask me later. Okay.
All right, so.
All those in favor of that date, raise your hand. Okay, thank you, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, now the next item is officially setting the date of Thursday, August 29, as the date of our public hearing for the 2019-2020 budget and the adoption of the tax rate for next year. So that will be August 29.
In what time? And they need to decide what time they want to do that one.
Yeah, we didn't put a time on there. That's up to y'all. We could do 5:30. This typically, if we do our work right on the budget workshop, this is really a half-hour process to get through this particular meeting.
What's best, 5:30 or 6:30 for y'all?
You say
Or
August
5:30 or 6?
August 29.
Thursday. On Thursday.
It's a third.
Thursday?
What about on the 12th? What about the time on the 12th?
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah, but there was no time on this one, which is best?
6 o'clock.
6? That works for me. Okay.
6.
You gonna be here?
Should.
Just kidding. You said you were sure.
I don't know about that, Nate.
Okay.
As far as I
So,
can tell right now.
you've heard the motion. I mean, the recommendation. Is there a motion to?
Make the motion.
David, second. Linda, any more questions?
We threw that off by 30 minutes, so we'll need reminders.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's always 5:36, and we changed it.
Okay.
I usually try to put that in.
Thank you.
In your book, in the email, and in your text.
Appreciate it.
You just gotta read it.
Greatly
Gotta read it.
appreciate
I'm a creature of habit.
I missed one last week.
That's the meeting also, we used to do all of our fund balance
6.
resolutions.
Right.
So there's a lot of housekeeping that we do at that last meeting.
Okay. No, we don't need to do more. Motion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And renewal of bank depository
Okay,
agreement?
last item here is the renewal of our depository agreement with Texas First State Bank. We're up the road here. Every 2 years, you have to renew your depository agreement with your bank, and this has to be approved by TEA. So we are up against another renewal, and you're allowed 3 consecutive 2-year renewals after your first appointment. And so we're good all the way up until, I think, 2023. I think I wrote that on there somewhere.
Well, look.
2 year, this one's gonna be extended to 2021.
Yeah.
And then we'll have one more renewal, yes, right there in the middle paragraph, which will extend all the way to 2023. So that basically means that in 2023, we'll have to go back and open this up for bids as far as our depository contract. This bank is doing an excellent job. It's a solid little bank, $400 million bank. They have superior rating. They do us a great job. The rates that they give us on our investments is good. And I don't think anybody could do any better. So we're very pleased with it. It's very convenient. And management would like to recommend to the board that we go ahead and renew our contract with the bank, Texas First State Bank, for another 2 years through August 31 of 2021.
Excuse me, is there a motion for that recommendation? John, second. Cheyenne? Any more discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
So on this one, we have a resolution, it's on page 153, that I'll need the board president to sign. And I'll take this resolution tomorrow to the bank, and Gary over there will do his part on their end. Good?
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
You know we're going into executive? All right, we are gonna go into executive session. It's 8:38. Take a little 10-minute break. Okay, thank y'all. Mr. Bell.